Thank you so much, Jafar, and thank you very much for the panelists who I think have very articulately and with a lot of data have provided us an insight. So all of you here understand the issue and the nature of it. What I will more focus on also is where to go from here. What can all of us do? How to really understand how to project this, what we need to specifically do, and understand what are the obstacles, because so often it happens that we think that a certain thing is not happening, whereas there are certain drivers and factors why there are obstacles. Unless we are able to get rid of those obstacles, we can't help. So I'll start number one in terms of framing the issue. How to frame the issue, because that's, we know there are different government organizations, non-state actors, different ordinary people. Different topics attract them because of money, because of politics, because of their identity. So unless you're able to touch on all these things, the politics of any country, and the money factor, and the identity factor, we'll not be able to make the case. So the framing is extremely important. Yesterday, while trying to prepare for this, I was looking at some of the latest reports on this, and I found an excellent quote. And I think that's how the word genocide is very important. It is legal as a, with law background, I understand it has a certain connotation, because if you talk to a lawyer, they'll immediately say there are certain conditions which you have to fulfill. So we have to pick the best words. I'm not denying there's genocide. There is. It's a horrible story of what's happening to Hazara. It's a tragic story. Even the figures will not do justice to it. But how to frame it? This I'm quoting Richard Bennett. He's the United Nations Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in Afghanistan. He's currently in Afghanistan, and he's representing Human Rights Commission from UN. He says, and I'm quoting him, and he said it like 2 months ago. He said, and he's investigating the Hazara killings. He says, and his investigation is on killing of Hazara, Shia and Sufi communities. You'll increasingly see these three words coming together. It has an implication. I'll come to it. He says, I'm quoting him, that the investigations tell him clearly what is becoming, this is his words, becoming increasingly systematic in nature. The killings of Shias and Hazaras is becoming increasingly systematic in nature and reflect elements of an organizational policy, thus bearing hallmarks of crime against humanity. The word crimes against humanity, it has a legal connotation. Many academics, scholars, policy folks around the world will immediately jump on this word, crimes against humanity, or all those scholars. Why? Because all of us are in many ways victims of our own fields. You'll tell me something and I'll say I'm a security studies professor. Jafar is now doing a PhD. His work is on different communities in the Shia community, and their work, he fits into it. He will always, your background, Sana will always look at it from media perspective. Each of us we have our own lens, but then there are words which are then beyond these, and that's the phrases we need to adopt. Framing is extremely important. Number two, lobbying and marketing. The tragedy is, even some very important issues, at times they don't get attention. For example, Hazaras is not the only one. I'll give you just one fact. In Afghanistan, during 20 years, the total number of Western American, European forces who died, the total number, American forces are 2,600, there are additional 1,600. The total number is 4,000 people, Westerners. Any loss of life, we should condemn it. Do you know? So 4,000 versus, can any one of you take a Afghan security forces died while fighting Taliban? Close to that. They say 77,000, some say 80,000. So we have not heard this figure. 80,000 to 70,000 is a big figure in comparison to 4,000. Why? Because, for example, the aid comes from the Western world. I'm sorry, I'm giving some very basic things to you to think about. Giving money. Even if 2 Norwegians get killed, they said, we are paying this much money, we are taxpayers. How come 2 Norwegian or Swiss forces died? There is then very extensive, thought out, systematic lobbying or process that people say, why are we giving money? So we have to think about what is our strength? How will the Shia community or Hazara frame this issue that will raise interest of so many people? Because why? We need more people who take a stand with us. So another example, now I'm going to be a bit hard on all of us. as Shias. So how many other cases we try to take stand for or support? On racism, I know some of the people here look very active and engaged, and I'm sure you go out on strikes and protests in support of blacks, for example, or in support of any marginal community. Do you stand for anyone else? Then you should expect somebody to come for you. You don't want to go to anyone else and help anyone else because they are not Shia or they are not even Muslim, and you expect everyone should come to your cause. Why? What are their stakes? So you have to stand with others so that someday they stand with you. You are not showing to the world community that you have any care for other major causes. That's how alliances are built. Whether it was civil rights movements in UK or Europe or USA or elsewhere, you have to stand with other causes. Then, in the same context, policy. Policy in the Western world, we are all Westerners, we live here, our identities are linked with it. The issues are always framed by the think tanks, by academic institutions. A lot of money already goes to it. I was, for some time ago, looking for a good paper on Hazara history in a modern sense. You'll be surprised, no world-renowned academic press has published a book on this issue. Whereas it is easy, and what this means is, if I have to write a book on Hazara, and I hope one of us will write or on a related topic by academic or trade publisher, it requires cost. So there are priorities. You build more centers, very good, build more. You give a lot of nazar and niyaz, please give it. Don't expect other people then, they will pay for your marketing causes. You'll have to pay for your marketing causes. So you have to internalize many of the rituals. I'm not going in a different direction. What I'm saying is, it are your priorities. Sorry if I sound too cold, and my heart bleeds as well as yours for Hazaras. Sure, give money where your mouth is. Have you heard any major Shia philanthropist giving money for marketing or writing a report which will attract the audience in the policy world? They'll pick it up. Do you know how much it costs to get an op-ed published in Time magazine and New York Times? I mean, people like me and Jafar and Sana, we work a lot, and Mariam and we try to do advocacy. We publish, maybe somebody will give $500. However, within 10 minutes, we can call 3 different companies in London who will say, I am a scholar, I want to write an op-ed. I can't get published an op-ed. They say, no, we will figure it out. And I'm telling you the exact amount. They'll say, give us $2,000. We will help you write that op-ed and we'll get it in Guardian, $2,000. So the Shias don't have $2,000? You're telling me? It seems you don't have. That's the issue. Our failure to market and systematically think how policy is made. That's how you will have to think about things, only then things will happen. I think I'm taking a long time on. At the end, all I'll say is on currently what's happening. I talk to many people. I have 2-3 more minutes. I'll give you an example of now. I recently did many interviews with many Afghans and Hazaras in Pakistan and Afghanistan. In Pakistan, the Hazara issue is slightly different. If in one sentence I can tell you, it is the Pakistani state which had developed links with the so-called jihadi organizations. And these religious extremist groups, from Sipai Sahaba to Lashkar-e-Jhangvi to Daesh, the local elements, they were used by the state in a way and those non-state actors, these terrorist organizations, they were serving the purpose of the state, at times killing the Baloch, at times going and fighting in Kashmir. But because they were religious bigots, their daytime job was to get a little money and fight in Kashmir or fight in Balochistan or Afghanistan. At night time, they will follow their own instincts of religious bigotry. They'll say, in the daytime, I'll shoot at the Indian forces. In the evening, I'm going to kill a couple of Shias, because that's the bigotry that they have learned from their Wahhabist, Salafist worldview. And so in Pakistan, it was slightly different. The Hazaras were at the receiving end because of the state policy's failure as well. In Afghanistan, the biases are more societal also, more ethnic as well. It's always a power play. And there's not much data available. Currently, that I'm saying it's purely anecdotal. Many of the interviews I did in the recent past with many people in Afghanistan, I'm getting mixed responses. Mixed in this sense that many of the ordinary people are not sure who's killing who. Taliban historically were very, very anti-Shia. We know what they did. The Shia massacres had happened. They had serious issue. The Deobandi brand of Islam that they follow has very sectarian connotation. However, now the new figures are since August 15, 2021, ISK, which is Islamic State in Khorasan, which is the Daesh, the ISIS, what we call, they have conducted 127 attacks against Taliban also. Taliban have slightly, I interviewed somebody who's a very important leader in this organization, I'll not name him. He was in Afghanistan recently for charity and supporting the Hazara. And what he was also told was that many Hazaras and many Shias said, we are better than before because now Taliban are on the streets, we can go and access them, they are not coming out of the mountains and attacking us. Some Shias are being pushed back. Some Hazaras are being displaced. Shias are being thrown out of government jobs by Taliban. So I'm not saying Taliban have started loving Shias. What I'm saying is now Taliban have a new enemy who's Daesh, who is bigger enemy of Shias and Sufis. And last point, you will see many new reports always saying Shias and Sufis. So at least sign up and build alliance with the Sufis. There are so many Sufi networks among the Sunnis who are very, very powerful, who it is a common ideal. So if you'll think you'll focus on ideas purely as Shia, you will be restricted. So that's what I wanted to add to the excellent conversation. They both know more than me on this issue, but I thought I can add a policy component. We can do it. We can absolutely make a change, but it has to be very systematic and thought out, and people will have to sit together and think what is our strategy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Abbas. I think your suggestion on, for example, marketing, paying to someone, getting published in Times is a very wonderful idea, I would say, because the issue of Afghanistan in general have disappeared in the national media, partly Ukrainian war, but we see other issues, for example, Uyghurs are being covered in the major publications. So I hope Brother Heather would also convey this to the elder of the community to think on these things. And by the way, I mean, before I take any questions, would you like to respond to, for example, what Professor Hassan Abbas suggested few things, or shall I go for the questions?
No, I think what Professor Saab mentioned is quite on point. I think he is right, that the way we frame it, and if we don't stand with others, why would others stand with us? And as he mentioned the quote of Martin Luther King at the start of his talk earlier today, so we should, wherever injustice is, we should all stand together, because that's what our Imam will come and do. He will establish justice. So if you are his followers, then we should still do the same thing in anywhere that injustice is happening. And in regards to marketing, I think I agree with that as well. That we are quiet, so if we don't raise our own voice, we don't support, we don't write books. We have many books, we have some books, I read some of the books, but as Professor Saab said, they may be not academic, maybe they're not published as enough. Some of the books are not translated, so not other people do not have access to it. So I think those points are very valuable. I think the community should focus on them.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Please.
You see how majority of the Hazaras are Shia. I just wanted, it's more like a historical question, like is there a reason to why Pashtuns don't like Hazara in terms of culture? Yeah.
Why do Pashtuns don't like Hazaras?
Yeah, in terms of the culture.
In terms of the culture, from what I have read and remember, is that because the Pashtuns have been in rule in earlier times, and it's not because of their abilities. It is because that they have supported the government or the West who are putting them in power. And the Hazaras have been more open-minded because the majority are Shia, and the Shia encourages on seeking knowledge. As we have the narration from the Prophet that you should seek knowledge from cradle to grave. So the Shias are on about thinking, on about seeking knowledge, and then they do not like that because they come into competition. So living in a place and then having these different like forces for power, fighting for power, I think that's why there is these differences between them.
And if I take the liberty to add a
Please go ahead.
I think one other thing is Hazaras have always been considered as outsiders. They have been living in there from the 13th century. For Pashtuns, they see them as an outsiders because there's so many historical things, but it's always been like, for example, they're outsiders. They were ruling us, and etc. etc. So when in early 20th century, the whole statecraft, they were, for example, Pashtun nationalization, Pashtun nationalism were built on excluding Hazaras. So this is a long history behind it, and that's we see why there is a discrimination and differences for Hazaras.
Absolutely, he's spot on. And the most obvious thing was also because, as you know, Hazaras have a slightly different feature, and they said this was a conspiracy of sorts. But this became so popular. They said that many Pashtuns and Afghans will tell you that these are the children of the Mongols. The Mongols had come and destroyed, and they look at their features. They came from China, and so once in a society which is 20% literacy rate, where some of the conspiracy theories, distortions become very popular, and then there's a few resources. Wherever there is a battle for resources, people will try to exclude everyone else, and they'll find anything. In this case, as so rightly said by Jafar, they said they are outsiders. They don't look like us, and they always sided with the outsiders. There was also this conspiracy about Shias in India and Pakistan. Few people know there were 2 or 3 Shia majority states, Deccan and those of you who have South Asian roots, so would know Tipu and others, and they always would say no, all the Shias had become, there are 2 words, if you are from Pakistani background, you will always hear, if someone sounds like a traitor or doing treachery, they'll say, are you Mir Jafar and Mir Sadiq? These were the 2 chiefs of staffs of important people who had sided with the British at the final moment. And because both of them were Shia, there's a very indirect toxic reference to it, which most people don't know. Even Shias don't know this. But those who are making this comment, they always know. When they're saying, don't be Amir Sadiq or Amir Jafar, indirectly you're saying, oh, the Shias, they were traitors, which is totally inaccurate, because the Shia states had played a very important role in defeating British colonialism. What I'm saying is, but where society, where you have 20% literacy rate, such distortions become popular. The only way to counter that is, number one, you should have alliance building even among the Sunnis, among those people who create these issues, and confront them. So the reason things are different in Europe or in US or elsewhere at times is, even small communities have rights. When they have rights and the legal system support them, even if they are fewer, they take up a stand. It ultimately comes down to rule of law in your systems. If there is rule of law and there is some equality, then even people with fewer in number, when they feel oppressed and sidelined and harassed, they can take up these issues. That's why everything that you Shias do, always stand for rule of law as well, because that ultimately always supports the minorities.
Is there any other question?
I agree with Brother saying we tend to spend more on the rituals, niyaz and all etc. Fair enough, we as a community do that a lot. But now again, I think we as a community are even very weak in current affairs. We have no knowledge. I from a Khoja community, if I was not a reader, I would not have known about Hazara community. What I would think is, we need people to come into communities, promote the cause of Hazara so as to be more aware and to raise funds to help them and to guide them that spending on niyaz and ritual is as important as serving in these causes as well, because this is Sawabi Jariya.
So true.
You are standing against oppression and gathering us today with the Imam Mahdi. This is the main reason to stand up against. But I think we need to educate the communities. You all, the leaders who are fighting for Hazara, they need to go around the communities, make them aware. In Khoja community, I don't think we are as aware of Hazara's issues as much as there is a need for it.
Well, thank you so much. This is so true.
I would just like to add, you're very right. Because I come from Pakistan, and what the positive thing that I have seen recently in Pakistan is that a lot of youth have come out and they are now working on various. They're actually using social media and digital platforms at their like fullest, and they are trying to use these platforms to actually spread awareness. They have created data portals where they are collecting information, they are collecting the stats, and which is obviously missing from the media, because media is not reporting or reporting with a lot of bias about Hazara persecution or Shia killings. So yes, I mean social media and digital technologies are the these are the spaces that that the youth can use, or anybody else can use to actually spread awareness. Yeah,
I agree with you totally. Going to the communities, getting that platform live, because media, social would be more accessible to youths, not people over 50 or 60. Over 50 or 60 in our community are not that digitalized, but they would help the younger generation as well to donate more to these causes and bring more awareness. That's what I feel. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And thanks.
Thank you for a nice presentation. To be honest, I am Iraqi. I came for Shiaphobia. I didn't care for Hazara or anything. I got no information. This is first. You know about what we have in Iraq, and it has been always our blood is halal. Yeah. And I found I've been here for 30 years. I'm a dentist, and I never hardly, apart from saying about the media, we don't sell our problem. It is our fault. I always, when I am in the kitchen, sorry if I'm taking your time, I switch on the radio phone. Everything happened to Muslim. Immediately, Ramadan, charity or whatever, there is one Khalid and that. I never heard somebody from our community speak about us. I don't know why. Why there is no. In Iraq, we are more medical and dentists and stuff, but I don't know about your community. There is no people like to be in politics? I would love to have more young, because we came as a graduate and we are not, and my children follow our steps anyway. So I don't just wonder why our people not have the courage, why we are as if we are embarrassed to say we are Shia, and why we don't raise that, and we have specific topics. Mahdi, hijab, hummus, and this is the only things we say. Aisha, sorry if I am straight, I'm speaking, but this is our fault. Why we are not raising these points? Why when there is something happened to Muslim, as you said, even if it's Sunni or anyone, we have to say, we have to make our voice heard. I pick the telephone and I speak. Even I speak about politics. I said, why Britain put the noise in every certain country? I always phone and speak. And they ask, what is your name? And they say yes. Sometimes they don't let me in the phone. At least I let them know that I'm not happy about what they're saying. But if we get this courage, don't be scared. You are not insulting anybody. You're speaking the truth. Just be have a courage to say whatever you think you are suppressed and you are not. They don't tell the truth. They don't tell the truth. So don't expect them to say the right thing about it. But unless we speak, they will not respect. They respect the people who they have the courage. If you are shy about your identity, so what is? They don't let us know. So why we should say? So this is what I want to say. Sorry if I take your time.
No, I think you're so right, and we are so grateful that you raised this, the issue of Shiaphobia, because what's happening to Hazara is also because of partly Shiaphobia. So Shiaphobia is a big issue, then come small issues, and you're so right. And why are those issues? I have to borrow here from a scholar from Iran, I'm a big fan of Ali Shariati, who used to say Shiaism has moved from the red Shiaism, which was revolutionary, which was assertiveness, which was standing up for rights against oppression, to black Shiism. He has a viewpoint. But what I'm referring to, he used to say, we have built walls around us. And we have to figure out which are the walls that people think we have built. Because those are, again, very sensitive issues, so I'll not go into deeper it. But Shias partly have built walls around them. And secondly, let's accept it, the systematic bias and the systematic propaganda against Shias is so widespread. It's so widespread. Those of us who, and all of us I'm sure, have friends among the Sunnis and other communities, when you really become friend and you'll ask them, they will start asking you questions which will stun you. I know more about the South Asian examples. The propaganda is so vulgar and it's so below the belt. But then, because no one has been challenging it, it doesn't happen. In Iraq, I'll give one example. I don't know how you'll all feel about it, but I thought of it as an excellent example. It's a little provocative, so please forgive me. So this was an Iraqi general. I go to Iraq more than I go to Pakistan. Recently I was there 2 weeks ago as well for Hazara, but also conferences as an academic. I trained the Iraqi police and security forces also. So I was there, and an Iraqi general came to me and visited me in the US as well. This is off the record, so if you're recording, this is not supposed to go up on social media elsewhere. So this general comes to me and he brought his son. And he said, I wanted to introduce my son to you. And he's from Halla, from close to Karbala. Oh, okay. So then you'll be able to actually confirm what I'm about to mention. He said, my son, I'm from 20th generation Shia family. He said, my son, his name is Umar. I said, oh, good, Umar, nice to meet you. And he smiled. He said, I know you South Asians don't keep Umar name. I said, no, that's fine. It's a name. And he said, but we have a tradition because we have many Sunnis. If we have 3 or 4 sons, we keep one of them on the name of one of the caliphs, just to give to the others impression there's no hatred, there's no bias against a name. We can have an issue with a personality because of politics, because of theology, whatever. And I said, what a beautiful message. And somebody who was next to me said, no, don't say it publicly. It's a good idea to name your sons Umar. I said, no, what I'm saying is, these are ways how you build bridges. And we have lost the art of building bridges. And I know also, I'll take liberty, Jafar, we have 2 very leading scholars in audience who can help us. One is Professor Muhammad Kalantari from Royal Holloway College, and of course Maulana Zafar Abbas, he's a scholar. I mean, hopefully we'll acknowledge them and learn from them as well. But I think Shiaphobia is huge. Shias need to build bridges by building trust, by showing others. Most of us are Shia. How many people in this room are Shia converts? Maybe if there's one, God bless you, sir. But 99% are not. The Shias are Shias, and because Sunnis are Sunnis, because they are from their own tradition. It is only engagement between the two. And the engagement, how many opportunities we as Muslims get to actually engage with other religious groups? Very few. Those things then allow these biases and bigotry and conspiracy theories to fester.
Sorry about engagement. Sorry if I'm taking the other. I don't think it's right. They are scared of us. I'll give you an example.
Even more so, we should meet them so that they are not scared.
Yeah, because I'm wearing a scarf in the shop leather. So a lady said, hello, I said, I'm sitting. How long? I said, 11 years. She said, she took my name and she said, there is a school. She thought I got. There is a school and there is masjid. We do. She took my name. We do tarawih. So I immediately thought I am a Shia. She is from Libya. I am a Shia. We don't do tarawih because it is not obligatory. It is up to the person. We don't do jama'ah if it is not. And she never phoned me. She phoned me to visit. Honestly, this is 2 weeks ago. She took my number to visit an old lady, Iraqi lady. And we expect to go to her on Monday because I don't work Monday. I told her I'm free on Monday. She said I'll phone you and arrange that. They are scared of us.
Sorry, there's some other questions. I'll go there and that's complete. And before I go there, I also welcome Hashim Nolzadeh, who is an active member from the Afghanistan. He's been leading and raising voice about the Shias in Afghanistan in general.
Can I make a quick comment?
Please. Can I take the question
yes,
then?
Sorry, just a quick one. What you said about publishing articles and papers related to the Hazara community. I'm just thinking, since the West media do not publish much about them, and the Times and Guardian, they are Western media, so wouldn't they refuse or at least put barriers and like not let us publish it, or is that still something that can be done?
I'll give you very short example, but I know Kalantri and Jafar also can talk about it and others as well. I have published books. This is not about me, but I'm giving example. Published books with Oxford University Press, Yale University Press. My 4th book is coming from them. I have seen there's always an opportunity. Maybe we have to at times knock the door twice or thrice. I was telling just one of us colleagues yesterday, I was talking to Sana, she's writing a wonderful book. And I was saying, Sana, yes, an ordinary person who's white, with all the respect to anyone, they will probably get on the 2nd knock, they'll get it. You and I will get it on the 4th or 5th knock. But we'll have to continue to knock. There's always an opportunity. And I think the West has gone through the learning curve. The number of Muslims who are getting published in top places has increased manifold. So we can talk, if you're into writing, see me afterwards, we will talk more about it. Okay.
Hands up to you. Brother Hashim, do you want to say
Hi,
something?
you may see from my white beard, I've been living in the UK for 58 years. So when we first came to England, I'm only saying this because you'll see where I'm coming from. We were more multicultural. In 1967, we had our first majalis in Cricklewood, right? And at that time, even though my father was born in Afghanistan, and we came from Kabul, our Maulana was Sayyid Waris Hassan, who spoke in Urdu. And our majalis was all conducted in Urdu because of convenience, right? So we need to go back to basics. First and foremost, we are Shia, and we mustn't carry our excess baggage. Culture is good when it's positive, but when culture forms barriers between Shias, then we should forget about that. Our children are in this country, my own children. We have intermarried with Khoja communities, Pakistani communities. It's a natural progression. The topic which I've seen is Hazara community, the story of genocide, right? The problem I've had with Hazara communities in the UK, I can only speak in the UK, is the minute you say that you're the Hazara community centre, you are putting a barrier. Non-Hazaras are not welcome in the centre. It says Hazara Community Centre. I work with Hazaras in Kabul. Alhamdulillah, we're helping with the people who suffer from the bombings in Kaj and other places. But as a community, if you wish to help the Hazara Shia community, because we do have Hazara Sunni community as well in Afghanistan. Yes, we do. They are very small. You have to put your own house in order first. And I'm saying this not patronizing, but as a person who's lived here for 58 years. I tried to form the Shia Council with the help of 3 other people 11 years ago. We were that close. We formed the Shia Islamic Advisory Forum, registered with Charity Commission. We fell at the last hurdle. Where we fell it's a long story, but I'm saying this for you to get a bit of experience, yeah? We start at the top. No. Start from the grassroots. Build up your grassroots youth. The youth are the future of this Shia movement, right? If you build up the youth and give the youth responsibility, the top will join you, right? So as far as the Hazara genocide is concerned, we are at your service, and we need to voice the genocide which has been going on for more than 100 years in Afghanistan, from the time of Abdurrahman Khan, and the Shias fled and went to Kuwait, Pakistan, and so forth. The Shias in Afghanistan have been suppressed, right?
Brother Hashim, sorry,
Yeah,
we have
sorry.
3 minutes and we have 2 more
sorry,
questions.
I didn't mean to interrupt. But
Thank you.
my quick question for you is this. If the conference here is about Shia genocide or Hazara genocide, I think what you need to do, in my humble opinion, is concentrate basically on the Hazara communities and how you can help the Hazara communities, because they are an integral part of the Afghan Shia community. 80% of the Shias in Afghanistan are Hazara.
Yes, yes.
It's 80%.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. You have a question?
Yeah. Do you think it's effective to lead with differences or similarities? Based on my own lived experience, when you communicate with other people, other Muslims, when you lead with I am Shia Muslim, they are repelled. So I was just wondering, where in the conversation would you say they were Shia?
I would say, because I mean, our first and foremost identity is as a Muslim. Maulana, is it true? First, we should always say, I'm a Muslim. The question of Shia or Sunni is a secondary question. And that's how I would approach it. Maulana, this would not challenge the theological framework.
I think it's also about the, tell your religion not by words or by your actions.
Right. Imam Jafar Sadiq sir, I have to quote the Imam for the blessings also. Somebody went to him and said, Imam, I am going for projecting the Shia Mazhab or whatever the faith, proselytization. He kept quiet. Second time, the person said, Imam, I am going, any guidance? He quiet. The third time, he said, Imam, any guidance? What should I do? Imam said, just one sentence. Try not to convey your message through your tongue. So that's it.
And personally, I don't find saying, for example, I'm a Shia Muslim, for example, we have philosophy, and there are branches of philosophy. And Shia Muslims, and I think finding Shia defines something. So, I mean, as Sister said, we should be brave to claim our identity, and we are followers of Imam Ali. And this is where we all begin. So if we forget our basic roots, it depends on the situation we are in. So we have a question.
Yeah, as Sir said before, that we live in diverse community and we should stand for others and they should come and stand for us. So I didn't know about all this a lot about Hazara now. It's like I learned a lot today. So just want to know about the charities. Is there any people working, like we spoke about charities as well for Hazaras? Is there any names for that, or people are?
We have the Hazara Council of Great Britain, so they are supporting the Hazaras, and they are a charity, so they are organizing different events.
Okay.
So we can contact with them.
Thank you. So I will take the. Thank you.
Please.
There was a man, people might know him, George Galloway. He's a great man. The Saudi Arabia government and Israel banned him from Press TV just because he was telling everything, had no lies, just full truth. And he was telling it on Press TV, and because they didn't like it, and he showed them in a bad light for what they're doing to the Shias, the Saudi Arabia said, get them off air. So he got him off air, but he still does do podcasts.
Yeah, he does
podcasts. He stands so much for the Muslim community, for Palestine, for Bahrain, and he's really, really good at that.
Thank you. Any other question? I have to come to you. Okay, please.
I was going to ask about, going back to the media point that you mentioned, that is there availability of getting a free press? Like, look at the example of Hong Kong. They have free press because the Chinese government is suppressing from the inside, and they're controlling Hong Kong, and they're saying, oh, it's actually the Chinese state. But is there a way of Africa getting a free press so that you can come to the UK and the West and we can get information of Hazara?
Yeah, I mean, there are some like platforms for and mainly they are run by the Shias in Pakistan, for example, where you can get your work published. But at the same time, like in my own experience, I have, like you also asked that, whether you can get your work published. I have tried to pitch stories to Pakistani media about Shia killings, and they were often, turned down. But whenever I try to approach Al Jazeera or TRT World or any other platforms like these, there wasn't any restraint. I would say that they encourage the work, like they encourage the voices which are suppressed. So there were some times like when I wanted to cover the Arba'in event, maybe because of other political reasons they did not approve that pitch. But otherwise, when I want to write about Hazaras or any other, or mainly about the Shia persecution in Pakistan, then usually, like Professor Saab said, that you have to keep trying, and then you have to keep sending your ideas or pitches if you want to write. So there are like a lot of platforms available if you want to.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I don't know because I was available a couple of minutes if somebody asked this question or not. But Hassan, following up what you said about reaching out to other people, now that Taliban is basically dying to receive recognition, international recognition, do you see any opportunity for Hazaras to basically reaching out to Taliban? And if so, are you aware of any kind of activities over there or not?
To the best of my knowledge, and I will follow what my brother says because he is from the community, he knows, but what I know, and I can say, I went to Iraq and went to the office of one of the great Grand Ayatollahs, who is from Iraq, from Afghanistan. He's a Hazara, Sheikh Saaq. I am not allowed to quote exactly, but when there was a group of people, we discussed this issue, and they said they are also getting mixed signals, and they want to wait and see because Taliban are trying to reach out to have some arrangement with the Hazara. Again, it will not be as an equal, or they will not, but there was some reluctance. I'm comparing it for 10 years ago when Shia clergy was very clear that no, we are not going to support Taliban. Also, to the best of my knowledge, Taliban have given us a deputy minister cabinet post to a Hazara member. So he's I think a physician, please correct me, but there's one again, that is not sufficient. But I would say this is a good opportunity to push them and get, because they've, for instance, in Mazar Sharif, the Taliban reached out to the Shia community, and please, two people will correct me. They said there's a huge, big procession. We will not be able to save it from Daesh attack. So they said, divide this big procession into 4 smaller groups because we can provide security. Now it can be that it is possible that Taliban don't want Shia's show to be a big show, and maybe they did it for that. Or if you take it at their face value, they want to provide security. In Ashura as well, this time, for the first time, they reached out. I'm not a Taliban spokesperson, but I'm saying, let's see what they're saying. They said, they called Shia centers, they said, your security is our problem, we will provide you, do our best to give you security. They did try something, many Shias tell me. They said to them, don't do flagellation with Zanjeer Zani and come outside. They said, that is against our view, don't go for that, but for your processions, your gatherings, do it. So there are some signs. I'm not saying these are true, let's jump and have a deal with them, but I would actually follow, and I'm genuinely asking to learn from you, whether you think these signs are strong enough or not. I think we should follow what he says.
No, don't follow what I say.
But follow means that your view from, because you're hearing from the community. Yeah. I may have heard it from 5 people, which can be anecdotal. I'm sure you're getting assessment from a larger people. That's why I want to emphasize that your view is very important.